Welcome again to the Positive Sports Podcast. I'll be your host this evening, Ed Montana. My brother Alex is not available. It's been a while. We've taken a little time off. We've both been very busy with life. But, you know, the sports world goes on, whether we're busy or not. And we had a great weekend of sports. And I wanted to share my thoughts with you and just talk to you a little bit. I missed you guys. I'm sure you guys missed us as well. So here goes. Without any further ado, I'll go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to talk about UFC 261 because it was really just an incredible event. It was the first event that was had in the U.S. with fans indoors. So full capacity in Jacksonville, Florida. Of course, Florida, right? They had 15,700 fans for UFC 261, headlined by Kamaru Usman, the defending welterweight champion, being challenged by Jorge Masvidal. Now, these two had fought before. This was the rematch, and that was the headliner. But the card was fantastic. The main card was stacked. They had 3 title fights on there. They don't do that very often, so as you can well imagine, it was a big deal. And the 2 other fights on the main card were big fights as well. Fights that really, you had a veteran against a young up-and-comer, both highly ranked, and you had a rematch 11 years in the making. So we'll go right to the beginning. Let me tell you, the atmosphere in Jacksonville. Now, I watched the entire card. I watched the early prelims, the prelims, and the main card. The entire card, for most of these UFC events before the pandemic, there was no one around. I say no one. There were very few people in their seats for the prelims and the early prelims. I'm talking very few people, like a couple hundred. I've been to UFC events, and let me tell you, on the prelims, there's very few people there. Now, I go because I'm a fight fanatic, and I want to watch every single fight I can, but for the most part, not very many fans in the stands. But for this Jacksonville card, I won't say it was full during the early prelims and prelims, but they had several thousand people in there. It was pretty raucous from the get-go. It was... It was an electric atmosphere. Even Bruce Buffer, the announcer, sounded more jacked up. It's incredible the energy that was in that place, and it was coming through the TV monitors because you could feel it as you were watching the fights. Now, I guess I don't remember, right? I don't know if it was that way before the pandemic, and maybe it wasn't, and now it's just that bottled up energy. Or maybe it's always been that way and it's been so long since we had it that I just had forgotten how intense it was. But I've heard people say this before, and I tend to agree. I think UFC events are the best live events to go to. Like, there's pluses and minuses to going to a live event. But when you go to a live MMA event, there's far more pluses than minuses. The action happens so fast that what you can see happening in real time is not that much different than on TV. Sure, you miss the replays, but whatever. Other sports have different things that are better. For example, in hockey, it's much easier to follow the puck than it is on TV. Things like that. But regardless, the atmosphere in Jacksonville was absolutely electric. I didn't realize how much I missed having fans there until I saw that event. And it was, from that perspective, it was absolutely fantastic. So we'll go straight to the main card. The first fight, you've got Anthony Smith against Jimmy Crute. Anthony Smith is challenged for the title. In fact, actually had a chance to win the title. He was fouled pretty badly by John Jones, who was the champion at the time. And pretty much could have gotten John Jones disqualified if he couldn't continue. He fought through it and ended up losing that fight. But, as you can well imagine, he's a pretty good fighter. He's hit a bit of a rough spot, had a couple of Had a couple of losses here and there. One of them was pretty bad to Glover Teixeira, who is now going to challenge for the light heavyweight championship here in a few months. So he's struggled a little bit, but he's a good fighter. I mean, he's just a good fighter. He's been in the game a long time. He's got 30, 40 fights. I don't even remember how many, but he's a veteran for sure. And he was going up against Jimmy Crute. And I'm going to apologize to Jimmy Crute right now because I don't recall if Jimmy Crute is from New Zealand or from Australia. He's from one of the two. I know that probably isn't a nice thing to say to Australians and New Zealanders. They probably get mad at that, right? Kind of like we would get mad here if they said that we're from, oh, you're from Canada or the U.S. What's the difference, right? I'm not saying that there's no difference. I'm just saying that I don't know, and I'm looking it up furiously as I'm talking, and I'm not getting there. He's from Australia. I knew it. But on the off chance that I was wrong, I didn't want to say it outright because then I'd feel like a dummy. Because inevitably, if I get something wrong on this show, someone will text me, email me, call me, comment, whatever, and be sure to tell me the one factoid that I got wrong on a hour-long show that I'm doing by myself. But whatever, that's the way it is. I don't mind the criticism. It makes me better, and I now will forevermore remember that Jimmy Crute is from Australia. So that's the fight we have at hand. Like I said, both highly ranked. I want to say Jimmy Crute was 11th, Anthony Smith 6th. So pretty highly ranked guys that are really 1 or 2 fights away from fighting for the title. The first round, just an absolute banger of a round. Both guys have their way in some of the exchanges. A lot of good shots connected, almost entirely on the feet. Neither fighter really wanting to push the fight to the ground. And with about a minute left, maybe a little bit more than a minute, Anthony Smith lands a kick right behind the knee or on the side of Jimmy Crute's lead leg knee, which would be his left knee. And Jimmy Crute takes a couple steps back and collapses. And so the first thought is, oh my God, he's really hurt. Like something's broken, right? Somehow Anthony Smith goes over to try to inflict more punishment and can't seem to do it. Gets brought to the ground by Jimmy Crute, and so they end up fighting on the ground for a little while. And in that exchange on the ground, Jimmy Crute is really taking care of business. He's doing well, and so you kind of forget about the fact that he collapsed from that leg kick. But then while they're showing that last minute, they in the top corner they show a little replay, and it looks like it's his ankle that it bends absolutely the wrong way, and it looks like trouble. But anyway, the round goes on. He finishes the round, and arguably may have won that round. It was very close. It could have gone either way. When he gets up, his foot and his ankle are worthless. Somehow he hobbles over to his corner and sits on the stool. But it's a mess. His leg is a mess, and he sits down, and they're icing it and shaking it, and his corner people are giving him instruction, and he's fine. He stands up, and you can tell he's not putting any weight on it at all. And at that point, the doctor had already walked in, but at that point now, when the corners are told to get out of the cage, now the doctor starts to talk to him. And the doctor talks to him, and he's like adamant that he's fine. Adamant that he's okay. Adamant that he wants to continue. He's got his hands up. He is ready to go. And this place is absolutely buzzing. The doctor steps back and asks Jimmy to take a couple steps forward. And Jimmy does. Very, very carefully. Very carefully. You can tell he's babying that left foot. But he looks okay. Believe it or not, in spite of the fact that you can tell he's doing it kind of gingerly, he looks kind of normal. Like he's just, it hurts, but he's not like he can't move. And then the doctor tells him to go back towards his corner. And when he steps back, because you put your foot down differently, as soon as his foot hits the ground, it just collapses. He almost falls. And he pops up again. And the whole time he's saying, I'm good to go. I'm fine. I'm going to fight. I'm good. I want to fight. But as soon as he takes a step back, you see that, something is very, very wrong. And so they wave off the fight. Anthony Smith wins by TKO, doctor stoppage. Come to find out afterwards, he was transported to the hospital. They're going to do some MRI and check on the ligaments in his knee, but it was just a nerve issue that had just shot down his leg and rendered his foot and ankle useless. I've seen this in other fights before. It happens. And I can think of two other instances. It happened to Michael Chandler in a fight in Bellator, and they stopped the fight. It happened to Henry Cejudo in a championship fight against Demetrius Johnson. And this was the second time after Demetrius had beat him the first time. And he went back to his corner, came out, and somehow fought through it and ended up winning that fight. Now, I know there's going to be people out there that are not going to agree with that statement. And I'm not saying that he won the fight in terms of I think he won the fight. He won the fight in the sense that the judges gave him a decision. 2 out of 3 judges said he won that fight. It's very highly disputed. There's a lot of back and forth. But at the end of the day, Henry Cejudo was credited with a win. Regardless of what you or I as fans may say. The people that matter, the judges, 2 out of 3 of them said he won. So anyway, I've seen it happen before. And, it's usually pretty devastating. And all credit to Jimmy Crute. He was absolutely willing to fight, and I don't think that was any kind of showmanship. He was absolutely determined to fight. And hats off to Anthony Smith, and hats off to that doctor, because I'm sure he was feeling a lot of pressure from Jimmy Crute, a lot of pressure from the audience to keep the fight going. He was buzzing. It was a great fight up until that point. He did the right thing by not letting him continue, because Anthony Smith would have kicked him there one more time and would have caused further damage for sure, and who knows how bad that would have been. So that's the first fight, which it's only a round, but the drama and the doctor stoppage and the buzz, there was so much action in that first round that it was just, you're like, all right, we're off to a good start. So we go on to the next fight. The next fight is Chris Weidman against Uriah Hall. Chris Weidman is a former middleweight champion. He beat the great Anderson Silva twice. Uriah Hall is a guy who won the UFC's Ultimate Fighter reality show. He had a devastating wheel kick on that show. And he's a guy that has been kind of a fringe contender. He's never quite been in the conversation of fighting for the title, but he'd win 2 and lose, and then win another one and lose 1, and then win 2 more and then lose. So he's kind of back and forth, and so he's never quite been in the conversation to fight for a title. But he was coming off 2 straight wins, and he against some formidable opponents, and there is some talk that maybe with a win over Weidman and maybe one more, he'd be in line for a title shot, right? So it's a big fight for him. Chris Weidman won his previous fight. He's kind of trying to fight his way back. I've heard interviews with him previous to this fight saying that he wanted to make one more run at the title, and felt like he was 1 or 2 fights away. He thinks he's a bad matchup for the current champion Israel Adesanya, and he thinks that he would present a lot of problems, his style, and so on and so on. So here we go, right? The one intrigue about this fight is a rematch of a fight 11 years ago when they were on the regional scene in the Northeast, in the New York area. They fought for the middleweight championship of that organization. And at the time, Both guys were highly touted, and the conversation very much was, winner's going to go to the UFC. Uriah Hall is a striker, Chris Weidman is a wrestler, and so the thought was, whoever can impose their will, if Uriah Hall can keep it standing, he's going to win. If Chris Weidman can wrestle him and get him to the ground, Chris Weidman's going to win. Well, turns out, as these things will happen sometimes, Chris Weidman knocked him out with a left hook, I believe it was, and ended up, or knocked him down with it, and then had some ground and pound, and on he went to win the fight, win that championship, and then go on to the UFC. Uriah Hall obviously made it to the UFC eventually as well. This fight was tough. It was tough. And for those of you that watched it, you know what I'm talking about. It lasted 17 seconds. I don't know if there was a punch thrown that landed. There may have been some casual pawing out there, but I don't think there was a punch that landed. And at 15 seconds, Chris Weidman threw a hard right leg kick. And you can't see it until you see it on the you don't notice it in real time, but on the replay you notice it. He throws a hard leg kick. So hard that Joe Rogan actually made the comment before he pulled his leg back. Or as soon as he landed it, Joe Rogan said, "Oh, hard leg kick by Weidman." You can see it on the replay. He threw it so hard that it hurt. It hurt. Uriah Hall didn't exactly check it. He moved a little bit, may have checked it a little, may have caught it just right, but it didn't look like he did much to defend it. His foot was still on the ground. He turned it slightly, but I don't know. But you can see on Weidman's face after he hit it, that kind of, ooh, that hurt me. And then when he put his foot down, it was broken. And it bent in ways that a leg should not bend. And certainly not at that point on your leg, at that point on your shin. And of course he collapsed screaming in pain. I don't think it broke the skin, thank God. But he went down, and that was obviously the end of the fight. Very sad for Chris Weidman. His nickname's the All-American. He's he's a family guy. He's kind of a beloved guy, and so it's really sad to see. There's really no other way to explain it. It was heartbreaking, and especially when you consider that he's already been involved in a situation like this. Anderson Silva famously kicked Chris Weidman and broke his leg in a very similar fashion. The difference is it didn't look like Weidman broke his leg when he hit Uriah Hall. Obviously he did, but it didn't look like that, right? When Anderson did it, you could see his foot wrapped all the way around Weidman's calf. It was disgusting on impact. And so that was the end of that. It's very sad for Weidman. He's had a long career. He's definitely on, I won't say the tail end, but he's on the backside, right? He's on the back nine. He doesn't have a lot of years left. He's considered a veteran, not a youngster, not an up-and-comer. And an injury like this is going to be pretty difficult. He went straight to the hospital and had surgery the following day. It's heartbreaking to see that happen to any athlete, but especially a guy like him who's a good dude. The other thing that was very difficult about that is you see that happen, and then they do the interview with Uriah Hall, and of course he's just devastated. He wants to win, obviously, but he doesn't want to win like that. And at the end of the day, you don't really want to see career-threatening injuries happen to anybody, whether they're your opponent or not, whether you're in a fight or not. It's just not the way you want to see it happen. And now you got 3 fights left. So even as a fan, it's kind of hard to watch and then, get excited about the next fight. It's like, ugh. yikes, you know. But onward we go, right? And the next fight up is the fight between Valentina Shivchenko and Jessica Andraj. And Valentina Shivchenko is the longtime flyweight champion. She's defended against all comers, and she has been an absolute beast in that division. Really, she's been incredibly dominant. It's been very hard to figure out who's been more dominant between her or Amanda Nunes at 135, 145, because both of them, since they fought each other, have just gone on a complete tear in two different weight classes and are just unbelievable. They are head and shoulders the best female fighters on the planet right now. And, you can make an argument for one or the other. Obviously, they fought at 135, and Amanda won both times, but both of those fights were very close. In fact, one of those fights, you could make the argument that Valentina won. And so, look, there is no number one, number two. They are 1-1, period. They are absolutely the best female fighters on the planet. And Valentina has an opponent in Jessica Andraj, who's coming up from strawweight at 115. Now, Jessica Andraj had won the strawweight title against Rose Namajunas, who's on the card later on. She lost the title to Weili Zhang, who is the current champion, or was the current champion on Saturday night, fighting one fight later. And then she fought Rose Namajunas again and lost a close decision, and now has decided to move up and challenge Valentina. Jessica Andrade, one of the strongest women you'll ever see in the cage. I mean, just an unbelievable specimen, unbelievable work rate. She does not get tired. She is just a beast, and it's not easy. She is not an easy night out for anyone. And Valentina Shivchenko, I told you, has been utterly dominant in at 125. So here they go. And there's a lot of talk before the fight that Jessica Andrade is the one that really could give Valentina a serious run for her money. Okay. I'm in. I want to watch the fight. We thought it was going to be a stand-up fight. We thought they were going to stand there and trade. Both have skills on the ground. Both can grapple and wrestle and all that. But for the most part, like to do it standing up. Jessica Andrade, more of a boxer type. Valentina, more of a Muay Thai type. So she's got more kicks and stuff. But, by all accounts, we're going to get a stand-up war between these two if it ends up being a war. They start off, and Valentina is getting a little bit the better of the situation with Andrade in the stand-up. And then at one point, she makes a decision to go and press her up against the cage and get her to the ground. She throws her to the ground a couple times. She doesn't do a ton of damage, but she is controlling Jessica Andrade. And Jessica Andrade has no answer. She has no answer for Valentina on the ground. And she even said as much after the fight. She said, "I thought we were going to stand up." Now, I don't know if that means she didn't train for being on the ground. I don't believe that's the case, but obviously it was not her expectation that Valentina was going to push the fight into a grappling contest. And Valentina on the ground she's not a jiu-jitsu person. She's not going to go for submissions exactly. I mean, she's got them in her arsenal. She's done them before, but she's not going to go for it a lot. She's going to ground and pound you, and she's going to just maul you on the ground. And so as the rest of that first round goes on, that's what happens. Valentina very much controlling the fight on the ground. Now, the round ends very clearly a Valentina round 10-9. They come out for the second round, and Valentina, I guess, knew this. And it's really kind of telling because earlier in the week she had made the comment that she liked to break people. She liked to see people break and push them to completely break. She said that people will break in front of her. She'll start to see the signs, and she will push harder because she will want to push them to that breaking point. She won't let them get back. She won't give them the opportunity to recover. So when the second round started and she went in for the clinch right away, I thought, yeah, this is exactly what she's going to do. She is going to grind Jessica Andrade to bits. And if she has to do this for 5 rounds, she probably will. Well, she didn't have to. Because all it took was a couple of minutes in that second round for her to absolutely, completely grind Jessica Andrade. Had her on the ground, just beating her up. At one point, finally got her in a crucifix and just started raining down punches and elbows. And Jessica Andrade couldn't defend herself, and eventually the fight was stopped. And Valentina is the most dominant 125er on the planet. In my opinion, the only fight I want to see, the only fight that interests me for Valentina is to see her fight Amanda Nunes again at 135 or at 130 or at one. I don't think Amanda can make 125, whatever. But at this point, look, that's the only fight to make. None of these other women have anything for Valentina. She even made the comment in the post-fight interview, for those of you out there looking for a weakness, don't waste your time. You're not going to find one. And she's right. She's right. I mean, it's kind of a silly thing to say. Everyone has a weakness, but in her case, it's really not. She can fight on the feet. She can fight in the clinch. She can get down on the ground and pound. She can submit you with jiu-jitsu. She can kick. I mean, she can do it all. And she's incredibly strong for that weight class. She looked like she was 10 pounds bigger than Jessica Andrade. And, you know, the thing about Valentina is she trains constantly. She does not stop training. She trains and trains and trains. She takes a week off after the fight and then goes right back to training. And so, you know, her and her sister and her coach travel the world together, and that's all they do is train. And Valentina is head and shoulders the best 125er on the planet. And I would dare to say she's probably head and shoulders better than all of the 135ers out there not named Amanda Nunes. It's just that simple. She's just that good. So, hats off to Amanda, to Valentina on just an incredible performance. She looked incredibly dominant. Then we move on to the Strawweight Championship fight with Weili Zhang and Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas is a former Strawweight champion. She lost the belt to Jessica Andrade. She beat Joanna Champion twice. Weili Zhang beat Jessica Andrade, and her first title defense was against Joanna, and she had that 5-round war with Joanna, and she beat her. And it was an incredible fight of the year easily of 2020. It's been almost a year since that fight. So she had a long layoff, and look, she probably needed it because it was an absolute war. And I'm telling you, it was fight of the year. If you get a chance, go on YouTube or UFC.com, Fight Pass, whatever. Look it up and watch it. You will be beyond entertained. Coming into this fight, I thought this was the most difficult fight to pick of the 3 championship fights. Valentina, heavy favorite. Kamaru Usman's a heavy favorite, plus he's already beaten Jorge Masvidal. This fight, you just never know. Rose Namajunas is a straight-up killer. Weili Zhang showed she's a straight-up killer, and it was going to be a fantastic fight to see these two women go at it at 115. We got our answer quick. The fight started, and Rose Namajunas' movement was crisp. I mean, she was constantly on her toes, constantly moving. She was the target that if Weili was going to hit her, Weili was going to have pinpoint accuracy because she was on the move from the very opening bell. And about a minute 15 into the fight, Rose Namajunas faked a punch, faked a kick, and then slipped a head kick in through her guard, through Weili's guard. Weili's hands are up, and somehow, Rose plants a kick on the side of her chin and face and jawline and knocks her down, and Weili is out. I mean, she's down and she's out. How Rose? I've seen people get knocked out with a kick when someone has their hands up, but it's never flush, right? They have their hands up and their hand, and the person's leg, the kicking leg and the hand all go into the face and knock them off balance, knock them down, and then they lose. This one actually went in between her hands and caught her flush on the side of the face. Weili Zhang goes down. Rose Namajunas jumps on her, drops some hammer fists, and the referee had no choice but to stop it. Weili Zhang protested vehemently, but, I mean, look. You were kind of out on the kick. You were in and out in between those 3 or 4 punches she threw, and you were going to be out cold if they let it go, because, I mean, it's early in the fight. Rose is fresh, and you were half in, half. I mean, literally, she was out on the way down. She woke up when she got down there, and then Rose hit her once, and then kind of missed her. She was kind of out again, and she popped back up, and then she dropped another one on her. And I mean, it was not going to be pretty. Let's just say that it was going to be ugly if they let it go anymore. And I understand she's protesting. She's knocked out. She doesn't know exactly what's going on. She's obviously concussed. And look, she wants to defend her belt and she wants to fight. I get it, but the ref absolutely did the right thing. I have no problem whatsoever with the stoppage. And Rose Namajunas is your new strawweight champion. She's extremely good, and it's gonna be tough for anyone to knock her off. I mean, she's beaten people that are scary like Joanna and now Weili Zhang and Jessica Andraj, right? It's gonna be tough for anyone to take this title from her. She's got a newfound respect and love and admiration for being a champion, and I think that she's really going to put her best foot forward to keep the title. It's one of those things where when she first got it, she was happy but didn't understand the pressures that came with it. And then when she lost, she was almost relieved because she didn't know how to deal with the pressure. And then once it was gone, she was like, wow, I really wish I was champion again. I'm the best. And, and she's got a very, very strong mindset. I mean, she says it over and over again. I am the best. When I do my best, I am the best. So all I have to do is do my best. And let me tell you something. For us regular Joes out there in life, those are words to live by. I don't know that I'll ever be the best dad, but if I do my best, I am the best. It's just that simple. And there's a certain truth there, right? So to all of you out there, take heed from Rose Namajunas. Do your best and you will be the best. And that's all you can do, right? At the end of the day, that's all you can do, and that's all she can do. And she is right now the very best strawweight on the planet. So then we get to the main event of the evening. Kamaru Usman against Jorge Masvidal. And this is a rematch. These two fought I want to say it was in July of last year. And the wrinkle to that fight was Gilbert Burns tested positive for COVID, I believe it was. So he had to drop out. And on 6 days' notice, George Masvidal, 20 pounds overweight, 20 pounds over the weight limit, and eating pizza half a planet away because the fight was in Abu Dhabi and he was here in the U.S., had to go through COVID testing, get on a plane, go to Abu Dhabi and Fight Island, and then had to cut 20 pounds of weight. And then, oh, by the way, now that you've done all of that over the last 6 days, go ahead and get in a steel cage with Kamaru Usman for the 170-pound strap. Kamaru Usman, who is, I think he's undefeated in the UFC. I think he's 12-0 in the UFC. He's been an absolute steamroller. There's people that are talking about him being the greatest welterweight ever. They're putting him in the conversation with George St. Pierre. I think it's a little too soon, but he is certainly on his way. And performances like the last two, right? He fought George Masvidal on 6 days' notice. So 6 days' notice for him as well. Completely different opponent. And he won every single round of that fight, 5-round decision. And then his next fight against Gilbert Burns really manhandled a guy who is very, very good. I mean, he's looking like a very, very serious champ. And he's looking like the kind of guy that could be champ for a long time because the weaknesses are getting smaller and smaller and smaller with Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman came onto the scene as a wrestler, but Kamaru Usman is far more than just a wrestler at this point. He, when they started training for the Gilbert Burns fight, they were both at the same camp down in Florida, and so Kamaru moved to Colorado to join Trevor Whitman's gym, and Trevor Whitman is a master striker. He's a master striking coach. And Kamaru Usman's wrestling was always top notch. He has cardio for days. He can go forever. He's just got that wrestling mentality, which we've talked about before. And now he's got great striking, and it shows. Excuse me. So here we had one round of really good back and forth action. George Masvidal is an exceptional striker himself, and they had quite a bit of a back and forth in the first round. But then in the second round, you could see Kamaru Usman start to get more comfortable, and at one point, just threw a left hook to kind of divert George's attention, and then absolute missile right hand right down the middle, and he hit George square on the jaw, knocked him out, went down there to finish him off until the ref stopped it. But there was there was no need. The one shot was a one shot KO, just an incredible shot. Look, people tend to not like Kamaru Usman. And part of it is his trash talk game is terrible. I mean, I don't know how you judge that, but it's awful. He just says stuff that's just awful. He started his career off with the whole "I'm a problem" thing, which it was just dumb. After one fight, he was like, "That was me at 30%." It's trash talk doesn't work or doesn't come across well when you disparage your opponent. Now, that's not to say don't say you're going to kick his ass. Saying you're going to kick his ass is good trash talk. I mean, that's good trash talk. But you disparaging him and, saying that you did that at 30%. Look, if you're saying that you did that at 30%, then why are we going to watch? At the end of the day, we want to watch a competitive fight, right? So saying that the other guy's not even worthy to be in the cage with you, it's not good. It doesn't work. It just does not work for the fight buildup. I know he thinks he's building up a fight. He'll take lines from other people, like Conor McGregor had "It's red panty night when you fight me," meaning it's a big payday. He says, Kamaru's Nigerian, so he says it's a green panty night when you fight me. It's dumb. He's just terrible at it. But as bad as he is for trash talk, he's an exceptional fighter. And quite frankly, trash talk aside, I don't care. He could not say a word for his next fight. I don't care. I want to watch the guy fight. He's an incredible fighter. He comes into the cage. He looks like he's just chiseled out of stone. And, the guy can wrestle, and now the guy can strike. So it is a lot of fun to watch him fight now. But in the end, he's probably the biggest winner of the night just because, in a stacked division at 170, he's looking more and more like the like he's going to be a long reigning king, and he's looking very intimidating as a fighter at this point, because like I said, he can strike, he can wrestle. It's like, where do I go with this guy? Where if you're a fighter, where do you go? I mean, I guess if you're a striker, you hope your striking is better than his, but then If if he decides to change it into a wrestling game, then you're screwed. If you're a wrestler, you hope you can avoid his striking and get him to the ground, but then he's good down there too. It's just he's an absolute handful. And while I don't agree that he's the greatest welterweight ever, he's working his way into that conversation. A couple more dominant performances like this, and you're gonna have to put him right there with George St. Pierre and really hash out a debate. But he's really good. He's really good. So a fantastic night of fights. Just the drama of it, the buzz, the electricity in the building. I mean, it was booming through the TV, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And I'm glad that the UFC is back with fans. I don't necessarily agree that it's the safest thing to do, but I'm not going to tell people to not go. That's not my job. And so if that's what they feel comfortable doing in Florida, then that's what they'll do. They're coming to Texas next month, and I'm sure it'll be a packed house there too. I'm sure we can get 20,000 people to fill up that place. So there you go. Let's change gears here. We're coming down the stretch now, right? The NBA season, teams are at about 60 games in. There's about 10 games left, 10, 12, 15, somewhere around there. 10, 12 games left in the season. And we're coming down to it to determine who the 10 teams in the playoffs are. That's right, I said 10 teams in each conference. Because the NBA, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to do a play-in tournament to get into the playoffs. When there were 8 teams in the playoffs, 8 teams in each conference, that is, I said at that point, it's too many teams making the playoffs. The basketball is not good. They need to trim it down. They need to go to 4. Because the first round of the playoffs, to me, is kind of a waste of time. The 4-5 matchup is interesting, but really, other than that, it's really not. 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, boring, right? You know who's going to win. There's very rarely a 3 that loses to a 6. A 1 and a 2 hardly ever lose in the first round of the playoffs. So the NBA, in their infinite wisdom, with their dropping ratings in the first round of the playoffs, what do? They decide to add more teams so that now we can definitely have teams below 500 make the playoffs. So you're barely winning you're not even winning half of your games, but yet you're going to have a shot. I don't understand it. Why don't they just make the entire season a playoff? Why not just scrap the regular season and do 2 15-team brackets, right? And just let them go at it. I mean, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And the way the whole play-in thing works, they've tried to make it nuanced and whatnot, and it's kind of dumb. I mean, there's really no way for me to explain this other than it's just dumb. So 7 plays against 8 and 9 plays against 10. The winner of the 7-8 game or series or whatever it is becomes the 7 seed. The loser gets to play to be the 8 seed against the winner of the 9-10 game series, whatever it is. So the 9-10 can do no better than be 8. The 7-8, the 7 can, they play for the 7 and then the loser plays for the 8, so they get 2 bites at the apple, so to speak. It's silly. To me, it's silly. To me, they're devaluing their regular season more and more. And quite frankly, this does absolutely nothing for me to be more interested in the playoffs. In fact, you know what this does? Actually, I take it back. I will be interested in the 7-8. I won't be interested in the 7-8 at all. Actually, let me look here real quick because I'm not sure. So it's a play-in tournament. So yeah, it's one game. It's one game. So what's going to happen is this. This is what's going to happen for most fans, and I'm one of them. I'm not going to be interested in the 7-8 game because the winner of that game is going to be in the playoffs regardless, right? They should have been in the playoffs. They win a game. They're now in the playoffs. I don't care, right? You're giving the winner something he should have already had. The loser, I'm going to watch the 9-10 game because one of those fools with a losing record could be a team with as many as 7 games below 500, which is what we have right now in the 10 hole. I'm going to watch the 9-10 game because one of those guys is going to have a shot. And then I'm going to watch the loser of the 7-8 game against the winner of the 9-10 game because that's going to be the 8 seed. I'm going to watch 3 of the 4 games, right? But then I'm not going to watch the first round of the playoffs because the first round of the playoffs is still going to be terrible. Because the only series that's going to be worth anything is going to be the 4-5 series. The 3-6 series may provide a little drama. The 2-7 and the 1-8, waste of time. Complete waste of time. The days of Dikembe Mutombo on the floor holding the basketball after his 8-seeded Nuggets knocked off the number 1 seeded Seattle Supersonics. And just by saying Seattle Supersonics, you know how far back I'm going. I'm going way back because they haven't been around for a while. That 1 versus 8 drama, that's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's again, colossal waste of time. And adding more teams with terrible records is not the way to go. Right now in the Eastern Conference, the 8 seed is 30-30. The 8 seed in the in the Western Conference is 31-29. Okay, we got teams with 500 or better. Fantastic. So instead of making our playoffs better with better basketball, we're going to go ahead and add 2 more teams in. The 10 seed in the West is 31-30. And the only reason we're going to be interested in watching them is because it's the Golden State Warriors and they have Steph Curry. Otherwise, we wouldn't care. In the East, it's the Washington Wizards at 27-34. 27-34. That's a 4.43 win percentage for those of you with a calculator. So we're going to let a team that wins 44% of their games into the playoffs. Terrible idea. It's just a terrible idea. And I know they're trying to do it for ratings, and I applaud them for trying, but this is not the way to do it. You have to make your regular season more meaningful. You have to have less playoff teams. This is just terrible. Looking at the standings here real quick. Look, the Eastern Conference, the race for the 1 seed is interesting. It's come down to the Nets and the Sixers. It's 1 game. I think they will very clearly be 1 and 2. The Bucks are sitting at 3, and the Knicks. That's right, I said the Knicks. That would be the New York Knicks are sitting at 3 and 4. The Hawks are at 5, tied with the Knicks, and then the Celtics at 6. Now, just a half game behind them are the Miami Heat, and there's a big difference between being 6th and 7th, right? Because 6, you're in the playoffs. 7, you got to play your way into the playoffs. Followed by Charlotte, Indiana, and Washington round out the top 10, and you don't even want to know who's below that because, for Christ's sakes, if Washington is at 27-34, do you really want to know who the other teams are that are worse than that? No. The interesting thing in the East is it really comes down to the Nets and the Sixers. They really look to be head and shoulders above. No, maybe not head and shoulders, but they look to be pretty darn good. And they seem to be very much on a collision course to meet up in the conference finals. But, anything can happen. Imagine if your conference semifinals are the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks. Wow. That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. Out west, you've got the Jazz leading. The Suns only a game out. The Clippers 2 games out. The Nuggets sitting at 4, and then a considerable drop down to 5, where you've got the Los Angeles Lakers 8 games out. 2.5 games behind them in the 6 hole, which again is very important, the Dallas Mavericks. Then you've got the Trailblazers, the Grizzlies, the Spurs, and the Warriors in the play-in tournament right now. Now, what's interesting is 2 things that interest me about the West. One, Utah started off hot, and we thought they would fizzle out at some point, and they haven't. They're really good. In fact, they own the best record in the NBA. So, they're a damn good basketball team. So as much as we thought they were going to fizzle away at some point, they have not. They have kept it going. Remember, they had that big 13-game winning streak, I think, early in the season. They're damn good. But look, even right behind them with the second best record in the NBA is the Phoenix Suns. And the resurgence of Chris Paul is amazing. That guy, when he got traded away from the Rockets and sent to Oklahoma City, I mean, everyone thought he was done. And he's not. He's not. He's playing tremendous basketball. He's a great, steady veteran hand for that team. And, really doing wonders for them. The development of Devin Booker continues. DeAndre Ayton's playing well. I mean, they're a good team all the way around at this point. And they're looking pretty solid as well. But it should be very interesting. The one thing, there's 2 things that interest me beyond that. One is the Lakers. With 10 games left, Anthony Smith is supposed to be coming back this week. LeBron James is supposed to be not far from coming back. But, they're only 3.5 games ahead of Portland in the 7th spot. They could have to play in that play-in tournament. And while I think in a small way, having the injuries to Anthony Davis and LeBron James are a blessing because they're going to be rested when they come back to the playoffs, they're going to have to get a few games under their belt to kick off the rust. If they end up in the play-in tournament, 1 game could knock you out. Well, if they end up 7 or 8, it would take 2 games to knock you out. But, again, kind of a dicey situation, right? If they can make it back, hold on to that 5 spot, they won't have home court advantage against the Nuggets, but they can play with the Nuggets. And granted, Jokic is having an MVP season, but when LeBron and Anthony Davis both get on the floor, it's going to be a tough go for anybody, including Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. So those are some of the things we're looking at. The other thing of interest, will Zion Williamson make it to the playoffs with the Pelicans? They are, they're 4 games behind the Warriors in that 10 seed. It's looking rough for them to make up that much ground, but unfortunately it looks like he's just going to be a really good player on a team that's not going to be in the playoffs. That's just the way it goes. So, anyway, so those are the two big sports things I want to talk about. I mean, certainly there's a lot of baseball to talk about. Jacob deGrom looking like he's rolling towards another Cy Young. The man's got more RBI this year than runs allowed. That's impressive. If you do that in 1 game, it's impressive. If you do it over the course of 2 games, still pretty impressive. He's 4 starts in, man. 4 starts in, and he has more RBI than runs allowed. Let that sink in. I mean, that's pretty incredible when you think about it. We've had a no-hitter already this season. The Padres and Dodgers treated us to a memorable series this past weekend. The first time they played in San Diego, it's kind of boring. Los Angeles pretty much had their way. But this last one in LA was a treat. It had really a playoff atmosphere. So there's a lot of stuff going on in baseball, but we have a long road to hoe there. We're going to have lots of podcasts to talk about what's going on in the baseball world going forward. So we'll leave that for another day. As always, folks, if you want to reach out to us, if you want to share your thoughts with us about the fights, about basketball, about baseball, about sports, about life in general, we don't care. You can always email the show, positivesports10@gmail.com, positivesports10@gmail.com. If you want to reach my brother and talk to him, I'm sure he is studying his draft notes for the NFL draft, which kicks off on Thursday evening of this week. So if you want to talk football with him, I'm sure he's got all kinds of ideas of who the Giants need to draft. That's probably what he's doing right now. You can reach him on Twitter at BrooklynGaucho1. And hey, if you want to get a hold of me, talk fights, talk baseball, talk football, talk whatever, talk running, I don't care. You can reach me on Twitter as well, at eMontana21. As always, you can get our podcast on YouTube so you can see my smiling face. Or you can listen to us on Podbean, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, whatever listening podcast listening platform you choose to use. As always, folks, it's been great talking to you. It's been great sharing my thoughts with you. I've missed you guys over the last couple of weeks. I apologize for the short hiatus, but we are back with a vengeance. As always, folks, ignore the negativity. Be the positivity. Peace.